Let's take a look at every Premier League club and their worst ever January deadline day signings. Arsenal, KALLSTROM. I'm still trying to work out what the point of this fella was. I guess he was cheap. You're damn right he was cheap because his legs didn't work. I swear Stephen Hawking himself would have done more damage out on the pitch than KALLSTROM did for Arsenal. Snapped up on loan from Spartak Moscow in 2014, he dove headfirst into the treatment room and played 3 times, including an FA Cup semi-final cameo against Wigan, where he scored a penalty and called it the greatest 15 minutes of my life. Clearly the man has never watched HITC sport video in his life. Bournemouth, Aaron Ramsdale. Bournemouth don't really sign too many lads on January deadline day, do they? Aaron Ramsdale was drafted in 2 years ago from Sheffield United, and you know much about him? Why would you? He was a reserve goalkeeper who's been shoved in the cupboard under the stairs and kept on a strict diet of dirt and newspaper shreddings. Life of a sub goalie, huh? Brighton, Gonzalo Hara. Signed on loan in 2012 from West Brom, Gonzalo Hara he just wasn't very good. Burnley, Marvin Bartley. It's hard to believe Eddie Howe was ever in the dugout of anybody that wasn't Bournemouth, but just like Nigel Clough whenever he dared to step foot outside Burton, things crumbled fast for Eddie Howe at Burnley. Maybe a word of warning to any potential suitors. Anyway, he signed Marvin Bartley, a defensive midfielder from his old club in 2011, who didn't really play much under Sean Dyche before being dumped on Leyton Orient 3 years later. Cardiff City, Gary Medine. Signed last year from Bolton Wanderers, the striker is still waiting his first goal. Chelsea, Fernando Torres. 50 million quid might not seem a lot these days. For Christ's sake, when the likes of Callum Wilson are getting touted for that much, but in January 2011 it was a hell of a lot of money and it should have bought Chelsea the best striker in the world. No, instead Fernando Torres turned up a shell of a player, took him until April to score, and aside from a few goals in Europe and a moment which made Gary Neville question his sexual preferences, he was an unadulterated flop. Crystal Palace, Alexander Sorloth. I don't know what it is about Crystal Palace, but they can't sign strikers, and the ones they do turn into wet porridge sludge on their arrival. Alexander Sorloth swapped FC Midtjylland for the Prem last winter, barely played, never scored, and was recently dumped back on loan to Gent. Everton, Oumar Niasse. There's been a lot of upheaval at Everton in the last 3 years, and Oumar Niasse has been caught in the middle of it. I feel sorry for him. He's almost the unwanted child of divorce. Signed for 13.5 million, he never really got a fair crack at the whip, and has since been shipped out to relegation battles on the Hull City and Cardiff. Lucky him. Fulham, Kostas Mitroglou. When Fulham see Kostas Mitroglou battering goals in on the continent every week, they must feel like slapping their head off the oven. Signed for a club record £12 million 5 years ago, this was the centre forward who was supposed to score the goals to keep them up. No, the former Olympiacos man did nothing of the sort. He barely touched the ball, played 3 times for God's sake. Within 2 seasons, he'd have scored 52 goals in 86 games at Benfica, while Fulham fans were getting out tickets for Rotherham away. Huddersfield Town, Ishmael Miller. I mean, lads, what did you expect? It's Ishmael Miller. Snapped up from Blackpool in January 2015, he lasted a year and scored 4 in 34 games. That is horrendous for a centre forward. And to think he played 20 games for Man City. Leicester City, Malawage. Who? Like, seriously, who? Signed on loan in 2017, Malawage, the centre half, just never played. Ever. Liverpool, Andy Carroll. Signed out of pure panic due to having flogged Torres, somebody at the club should have known throwing 35 million at Andy Carroll's head was a bad idea. And it was terrible. 6 goals later, he was dumped on West Ham, where even their fans are now pleading with the mighty gods to strike him down. Man City, Benjani. Every now and then there comes along a bang average player who hits a golden run of form for whatever reason, which is why the £75 million links to Callum Wilson's name had me laughing. Benjani, who had scored 2 goals throughout an entire season just 2 years previously, hit a golden streak and scored 12 before Christmas for Pompey. So Man City decided to splash out. Bad idea. He scored 3 in his first 13 games, albeit one was the winner at Old Trafford, but once Sheikh Mansour came to town 6 months later, he was beginning to look more and more like last night's fish and chip paper. 10 more appearances, 1 more goal, big waste of 7 million. Considering Portsmouth replaced him with Jermaine Defoe, lads, who got the better deal? Man United, Freddie Vaselli. Yeah, Manchester United's worst deadline day signing is Freddie Vaselli. Go on, tell me I'm wrong. Find me another one. I can wait. I've got all day, lads. Trust me, I'm a YouTuber. Swapping City for United in 2012, he did absolutely nothing before ending up at Ipswich. Newcastle, Stephen Ireland. What a gigantic waste of time. Surprised he was even able to fill out the paperwork with the amount of granny funerals he was supposed to be attending. Southampton, Manolo Gabbiadini. Manolo Gabbiadini started like a house on fire and looked like one of the best signings. A £50 million buy from Napoli, he scored a bunch of goals in his first few games, including 2 in the EFL Cup final, before shriveling up like a dead hamster and forgetting what the back of a net looked like. Tottenham, Hossam Ghali. Let's see. He arrived to Spurs from Feyenoord in 2006, scored 1 goal, tore his shirt off and was subbed and chucked it to the floor, was roundly booed by the fans, was punished by being sentenced to a loan deal at the worst Premier League team known to man. Yeah, great signing. Watford, Gareth Williams. Gareth Williams was apparently on big money and played 3 times. That's it. West Ham, Jordan Hugill. Still trying to work out the point of this. Jordan Hugill isn't even that good a championship player. So quite why West Ham snapped him up last year, I have no idea. 3 appearances, no goals. Wolves, Jeremy Eliadier. It must be tough being Jeremy Eliadier. Aside from, being a lavishly rich and famous footballer despite being bad at his job, this guy is basically a black stain on most clubs he's been at, certainly in Britain. Wolves is no different. Signed on loan from Arsenal in January 2006, he has scored 2 in 14. That is poor.